Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm Mickey Feldman-Simon. I'm the founder of I'm Back at Work, and I'm very excited to have Yulin Lee here with us today. She will be talking about how to grow your career by embracing the love of money. A little bit about me. I am a certified career and executive coach. I have over 25 years of corporate experience. I have reinvented myself and worked in different roles from HR many years and marketing and recruiting and business development. And under my leadership, multiple startups were acquired with successful exits. And I also took multiple career breaks throughout my career, whether to move continents multiple times. As you hear from my accent, I am not just American. I've lived in the US for the past 22 years, but I'm also Israeli and Australian. I took breaks to take care of my kids when they were young and to take care of my aging parents. And I successfully returned to the workforce after each one of those breaks. I founded the company I'm Back at Work to help other women remain and return to the workforce. And I'm thrilled that through the platform, we have helped thousands of women succeed. Yulin, we can no longer see the presentation. I'm assuming it just jumped out.
Yeah, let me get back in.
You'll work through it. You'll get back in. So, I was very excited after meeting Yulin to have her come and talk to us here today. As most of you know, women only earn 80 cents to the dollar of what men earn. Women also make up only 8% of investors. Women hold 71% of their assets in cash. And that means that they're not investing to build their wealth in the future. Men, only 60% of them hold their money in cash. Women on average retire with 2/3 the money that men do. And women are also 80% more likely to be impoverished in retirement. With all these statistics, I thought it was so important to bring Yulin here to talk to us about why it's important to understand our attitude towards money, to embrace it, and to definitely improve it as well. Before I pass it on to Yulin, I want to make sure that you can all use the GoToWebinar panel. So your panel may look like the image on the right where it is closed off, or the image on the left where it is expanded. And to open and close it, it's very simple. You just click on the orange arrow at the top, and that will open or close the webinar panel for you. Now, in the last 5 minutes, you can also drag it out of the way if it's obstructing the view of the webinar. You just do that by clicking anywhere at the top of the panel, and then you just drag it out of the way. And we will also have a Q&A question in the last 5 minutes of the webinar. You just click on the gray questions bar and then type your questions in the blue rectangle underneath, and we will answer all of your questions in the last few minutes of the webinar. Now, this is going to be an interactive webinar. Yulin is going to ask you wonderful questions, and you'll be able to share your answers to those in that gray questions bar as well. So now, Yulin, I'm going to pass it on to you, and I'm going to turn my video camera off so you can concentrate on listening to Yulin. Thank you, Yulin, for joining us here today.
Thank you, Mickey, for the opportunity. Money and, women and money is a subject that's very, very dear to my heart. And so, as you had seen earlier, not knowing how to work the GoToWebinar, it's very scary for me, and I lose the screen for a second. And I wanted to kind of make that analogy for a lot of women when it relates to money, because sometimes, and for many women, it's a subject that they're not necessarily familiar with. So there's a lot of fear and trepidation on what to do with it. And so part of my talk today is to hope to open up that dialogue for you, but also just to help you open up a little bit and hopefully work through some of the fear and kind of like what I did earlier. And so we'll go from there. So before I dive in, I wanted to also just give you some background about who I am and also why I do what I do. So as a financial coach, so I am also a business owner. So that means I totally understand everything that you may go through if you're a business owner in terms of how to deal with the ups and downs, how to deal with the fear, how to deal with, oh my gosh, can I make it both for the business, but also financially, can I really make money from my business? So all of these fears that come up, and I totally can relate to that. I'm also a mother of 2 young adults. And so even though I have worked most of my working life, I did take some years off and became a stay-at-home mom, and then transitioned out of that again. So I also totally get if you are someone who is going through a transition from being a stay-at-home mom, wanting to create your career, and thinking about, what's next for me? Like, what is my next chapter? And again, there's probably some fear in there that I went through myself as well, so I can relate to that. And then also, I want to say that I am a woman of financial independence. And I say that because I've done like what I call the 2 fundamental questions that all women, or actually all people, should answer for themselves. And the first question is, if my spouse is gone tomorrow for whatever reason, can I live the same lifestyle that I live today? And I really want you to kind of take a minute to really think about that, because at the end of the day, we women live longer, and there will be a point where we will be on ourselves. And so it is a very important question for all of us to answer, is can I live the same lifestyle that I live today without a spouse, without whatever support you may have currently today? And if you haven't really thought about it, then it's a good time to start thinking about it. And if you have thought about it and the answer is no, then it's time to figure out, what is that plan B, right? What do I need to have in place so that it softens the blow if something were to happen for unforeseen. And then also the second question is, am I working purely for the love of the work that I do? Or am I working because I need the money to pay the bills? Because if you can say yes to the first part, which is I'm working because I love what I do. And obviously, we want to make some money along the way for the work that we deliver, but the main purpose isn't for paying the bills. And so if you can get to that point, then you are financially independent. And so what I like to, do, and that this is exactly, the mission behind my work, is to help more women to answer yes to these 2 questions and get to a place where they can really have the financial freedom that they want. So that's a little bit about myself. And again, if you have any questions, like Mickey said, this is really meant to be an interactive session. And so feel free to put any questions, comments in the chat, and Mickey will help me to kind of watch and make sure that I answer them for you, because I'm not really big on giving a lecture or a talk about money, because it's just too personal. And so I want this to be a very interactive session. So here's a picture of a house. Can anybody tell me what is wrong with this house? And I'll just give a few seconds if you can put in the chat and tell me what do you see as might be a potential problem for this house.
Crooked is one answer we're getting from Rachel.
Okay. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It's slanted, right? I mean, this is a beautiful house, but it's slanted. So why is that, right? So the way I think about how we build our business and how we build our life in general is, it's like building a house, right? And so if I talk about business as kind of an example here, when you're building your business, your marketing, your sales activities, they're like the windows and the doors that bring the clients in, right? That attract the clients and bring the clients in. And so you may, through all those activity, you may create a beautiful looking house. Now, what's underneath the house is the foundation. And that foundation is your finance. It's your personal finance and it's your business finance. So we can't really separate the two, which is something I've seen people do, is that they haven't really taken the time to really take care of their personal finance. And then at the same time, they're ready to go create a business, which is great, right? So I'm not saying don't go do that. But it is also important to remember at the same time, if you really want to build a long-term, sustainable, successful business, we have to also do the laying the foundational work of making sure our personal finance is taken care of. And so I really kind of want you to, really take this image and sink into your head about what am I doing on a day-to-day basis for building my business or building my life? And then really underneath that, what am I doing in terms of building my foundation? So my question to you is, how is your foundation, right? How is your foundation today? And, when I talk about money and when you think about money, what comes up for you, like emotionally or just mentally? What's the first thing that come up for you? Do you feel like the woman on the left, or do you feel like the woman on the right? And if you can, again, just drop in the chat box and, share. And again, I also want to say this is a safe space for us to talk about money and to talk about how we feel about money. So don't feel like you're going to be judged at all. And because we're all in it together. And I personally have experienced everything, all the kind of emotions around money as well. So again, no judgments, but just, really kind of be honest with ourselves and say, hey, does money scare me? Or does money excite me? Or does money make me depressed? Or, whatever that feeling may be. And if you can drop it in the chat box and share that, that would be great.
So we have Shana and a few other people saying left. We have Rachel and some other people saying right. And we have some both.
Okay, yeah. And so part of this discussion too is get all of you to start feeling more comfortable expressing those emotions around money. Because one of the things that we all know that is money is such a taboo doesn't matter what culture. And so it's so hard, like Mickey mentioned before, right? There's such a big, pay gap. There's such a big gap in our retirement outlook between men and women. But at the same time, the environment that we're in, it just makes it so much harder for us to even reach out to get help because it's so hard to talk about it. So again, that's another intention of my talk today, is to get you to be more excited or at least more comfortable talking about your emotions, and then we talk about how do we work through them. So with that, I want to just take you through a couple of exercises to help you dig a little deeper to find what your money story is and what your relationship with money looks like. Especially for those of you that said it might be both, right? And so to get to better understand what are the things that trigger you to be the woman on the left versus woman on the right. So here's an exercise for you. Imagine you are on a coffee date with money, and I would like you to take a piece of paper and a pen and just start writing. And so here are some of the questions I want to give you and have you think about and write it down. Now, don't overthink it. It's whatever is the first thing that comes to your mind, that is your answer, okay? Because there's no right or wrong answer. It's just your answer, right? So we don't want to overthink it. So here's the first question. If you were on a date with a coffee date with money, what does money look like? And I'm going to give you a few minutes to, or just, actually a couple of seconds to write it down for you. And also if you could share in the chat box, that would be great. Is money a man or a woman? Or it could be an object.
I have a man, A flower.
Mm.
A woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No.
And you know, as we go through, so today we only have a few minutes, and so I won't be able to take you too deep into kind of analyzing any of these answers, but I encourage you to to do this on your own after we're done with this webinar, to really on your own time to dig a little deeper, right? So if it's a men, so really think about what is your relationship with men in general? The impression of what is that, if it's a man, what does that mean? What are the adjectives that you come up with? What does that represent? And then for someone who says it's a flower, again, going deeper, and then what is a flower? What does that mean? What comes to mind? What does flower bring to you? All right. And then, same thing with women. And so, again, we're not going to have time to go and eat, too deep, but I totally encourage you to do this on your own.
We have tool as an answer as well. Another one. I like that one.
Which one? Sorry.
A tool.
A tool. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. All right. And then, so how is he or he dressed? Is it, what color, what kind of clothing? And if it's an object, again, what color? What does it look like? The surroundings that they may be in. If it's a tool, is it a tool that's placed in a nice, organized drawer, or is it a tool in the shed? I mean, just let your imagination go wild. What does it look like? What color?
A crank we have here. I think that's a follow-up on the tool. We're getting more specific here. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
We have transparent, metallic gray.
Okay. I love it.
Formal, like a formal suit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for all of these,
imagination.
yeah, and again, for all of these, we can dig a little deeper, right? To really kind of get to what does that mean to you? What does that represent for you? So the next question is, who showed up first to the date?
Money.
Mm-hmm.
We have a few monies, a few me's.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So for those who answered, money showed up first, then you might want to think, and again, I'm not necessarily putting words in your mouth, but does that also match sometimes, are you avoiding money? Like, are you procrastinating on things that's related to your finances? Right. So again, we can dig a little deeper in there. Okay. So what did money say to you? And what do you say back to money? What is that conversation like?
Love these questions, Yulin.
Okay. Yeah, I hope you're all enjoying it and having fun, because again, it really takes us out of that normal, what I quote unquote normal feeling or way of relating to money, and to really kind of bring it a little bit closer, right? And so do I have any answers in the chat box?
Not yet. I don't know if this is a little bit more personal. So people are not sharing that part yet. That's okay. We'll give them another few seconds. Oh, there's plenty of money we're getting, but a limited amount of time. Interesting.
Okay.
You can do this. That's another part of the conversation.
Okay. So the money is telling the person you can do this?
Yes.
Okay. And then the money is telling the person there's not enough time? Or is the person saying not enough time?
What they wrote is there's plenty of money, but a limited amount of time. You can feel free to elaborate, Shanna, if you want to, a bit more about that, but.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Again,
The money was saying that, just to clarify.
I'm sorry.
So the money was saying that there is plenty of money, but a limited amount of time.
Okay. So I wonder, again, this is probably for you to kind of think about it a little bit more later, is what is time? Like, what does that mean? Time, a limited amount of time for what? What is that referring to?
And why is time limited, I would think as well, right?
Yeah. And so again, I hope, this is just one exercise to help you, kind of just really start exploring your relationship with money. And again, you may have seen or heard other people saying about, rewrite your money story, right? So how would you rewrite your money story, right? You would need to know, where are you starting, right? So what is it now? And so I hope this exercise help open up a little bit of that door for you. But like I said, we only have a few minutes here, and so take more time to dig a little deeper, and you may just find some nuggets that will give you, because I've seen in the workshops that I do where we have a little bit more time, that I've seen light bulb moments go off, right? For one woman who did this exercise, and she said, oh, well, money is not a man or woman, it's a mountain. And then right away she said, and I hate climbing. And then as soon as she said that, her light, her eyes just went off, and you can see the light bulbs go off, and she goes, oh my God, that's why I've been having so much struggling, with money, is because money represents a mountain and I hate climbing. Of course, that's not going to be a healthy and loving relationship, right? And so by understanding that, then now she's able to reframe how she thinks about money. And so I hope this exercise will do the same for you, where you find some nuggets in terms of your own relationship with money, what it is today, right? Okay, so next one. Here are just a few of filling the blank. And again, don't overthink it. Just whatever's the first thing that popped into your mind, that's the right answer. And if you could share that in the chat as well. Money is what? If you can pop into the chat, that would be great.
We'll give people a moment to fill in their stuff. The answers. So what is money for you? Money is, I have, one of them is great.
Okay.
Abundant. Tight.
Money is tight. Is that what?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Feel free to type in your thoughts.
Yeah.
Green. Works for the US, yes.
Okay. And when I think about money, I fill in the blank.
One, there's cringe. Worry.
Okay.
Am grateful.
Yeah, and these are really good answers, right? That helps you to understand, maybe explain some of the behaviors that you may have been having around your finances, and how you make financial decisions, and how you go about building your financial future.
And I'm frustrated as well.
Okay. And so I feel frustrated about my finance. Is that the answer to the third?
I suppose when I think about money, I'm frustrated. So I think it's probably the answer to both of those questions and can be, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And again, there is a little difference between money and my finance, right? So money in itself has kind of its own entity, and then my finance is really kind of a result of what I have been doing and my circumstances as of today. So they're not exactly the same thing. So sometimes we really need to, if we want to improve our finances, we have to work on our relationship with money first. So I just want to kind of make that distinction.
I love that distinction.
Yeah. Okay, so again, I totally encourage you to, play with it a little bit more. Part of also what I like to do with, when I do workshops, I work with my clients, is just to make the work a little bit more fun. And so it's not as, the dry, oh, we're talking about money, we're talking about numbers, but really kind of bring more a human aspect to how we can, build relationship with money. And so I encourage you to do more of that on yourself. All right, so now that you've kind of explore using just a couple of tools that I gave you, and whatever summary or conclusion you may have after going through all this, then the question is, if there are things that you aren't, that isn't perfectly what you want in your money story, then the question is, how would you rewrite your money story, right? And that's kind of the theme of our talk today too, is that we want to create a new business, or we want to create a new career, but really, how can we embrace money as a tool to help us to create that great next chapter for ourselves? So that is really fundamentally is a question for ourselves, is how can I rewrite my money story? So I wanted to just give you some tips. There's 3 tips that I wanted to give you today, not too much, but just 3, and to hopefully to really help you kind of reframe how you feel, how you think about money, and ultimately to get to a place where you can really embrace money and love it for what it is, no more, no less. Okay, and so the first thing is no more fuzzy math. And this is something that's very common that I've seen with, whether people in their personal finance and then also business finance, because sometimes, actually most of the time I see this correlation, is that people don't necessarily take the time to get very clear with their numbers. And what I mean by that is, if it's personal finance, their budgets, they may kind of know how much I spend every month, but they don't know for sure. Right. And then also, if I were to ask you or someone and say, hey, so how much are your living expenses per month? And so you may kind of think about it and say, well, I probably spend about, I don't know, $3,000-$5,000 a month. But then you're probably just thinking from the monthly cash flow, what's in, what's out. But what about things like a vacation, like, a big vacation that you take a couple of times a year? And so if you don't actually go to sit down and making sure all of those numbers are calculated in, you're underestimating your expenses, your living expenses, right? And so things like vacation, things like buying a house, buying a car, right? So people don't factor that into their living expenses. But for some people, they may have a pattern of changing their cars every 5-10 years. So how do you incorporate all of those expenses into your kind of forecast and budget so that you don't end up with these surprises? And then what happens with most people is, oh, then they end up putting on a credit card, or they take on a loan. And so, again, saying no more to fuzzy math can really help you get clear on where the money is going, where it's coming in, what's going out, and then really start becoming the master of your own finances. And, like I said here, numbers are great storytellers because they don't lie. And so once you've kind of start doing budgeting, or really doing the careful planning and tracking, right, then you can tell, or actually you can see the stories that your numbers are trying to tell you. And so then you can say, oh, is that the story that I want? And if that's not the story that I want for myself, then you be the writer. You be the writer of that story by changing those numbers. And so, again, that all starts with getting clear and getting clarity. And whether you like the numbers as it is today or not, because that's another reason why I see a lot of people don't want to do that, is there's some parts in the back of their mind, they kind of know that, well, I may not like what I see, and therefore I don't want to touch it, right? And so, and it's very natural, and I've certainly experienced it myself as well. And so, but the reality is, the longer we delay, it's just the worse it gets. And so it's much easier if we just kind of face it. And then also, while we're doing that, don't put so much judgment on yourself. Right. It's we do that too, like the self-blame. Oh, how come I'm so bad with it? Oh, I can't believe I did this or that. None of that. It's just, it is what it is. And like I said, love money for what it is, no more, no less. So let's not take on too much of that emotional attachment that we sometimes attach, assigned to the numbers that we have. All right. So the second tip is to be proactive in goal setting. And again, there's a lot of, for women who are not used to dealing with money or, like to deal with money, I like to say, think if you can find a way to think of numbers are sexy, then it will actually make your work a little bit more juicy. And what do I mean by that is, be proactive. Think about, like, again, if you're going on a date with money, and money is this, great looking guy, totally sexy, what would you do? Like, would you be more proactive in, maybe dressing yourself up, a little bit more, and maybe showing up to the date, on time or a little bit early just to check him out, whatever that might be. But again, kind of bring that play elements into how you deal with money. Now, specifically what I'm talking about here is being proactive in goal setting. And what do I mean by that? I'll just use another example, for a business owner. A lot of times when I do my cash flow workshop for business owners, one of the things I have them do is write down your projections for the next 12 months, both your income projections and your expense projections. And what I see often is they know what they're going to be spending, in this coming year, because I want to do this marketing, I want to do this campaign, I want to, do this training. They're clear in mind what they need to do, and therefore their expenses are associated with that. But then on the income part, they really have a hard time putting that number down. And the answer is always, well, I don't know how much I'm going to make next month, because what it is they're leading with expenses. So they're leading with their activities, and it's kind of like, I'm just going to throw these things on the wall and I'll see what sticks, right? So whatever I get, whatever sticks is going to be my income. And so what I really want to encourage you to do if you're a business owner is to really shift that and start with your income goals. And so even if you're starting, you may be thinking, well, but I'm starting, I would love to make $10,000 a month, but I'm starting and it's not going to be realistic. I get that, and that's okay. So you can say in your mind, ideally, I would like to make $10,000 a month, but because I'm starting out, so I'm going to set my goal to be $1,000 for the next 3 months. Whatever that number is, that's fine. But as long as you put a number down as a goal for yourself, and what that does is that will help drive your marketing activities. Once you've done that, then you know what kind of activities. So you work backwards and say, okay, if I want to generate $1,000 a month from my business, what and that translate to, I don't know, maybe 2 clients or 5 clients, whatever that is, then you can go back and say, okay, what kind of activities I need to do to get me 2 clients or 5 clients, right? And so you are leading with revenue and you're leading with profit first, as opposed to you're leading with expenses, which is what I see a lot when I help clients with their business finances. They end up with this huge expense and they keep putting on the credit card, but then they're still kind of waiting and hoping the income will come in. And so This is what I mean by being proactive in setting goals on the revenue, right? And then again, same thing if you're, going back to work into the corporation, having a salary, employee having a salary, you may be looking for different jobs, and then of the kind of work that you want to do, but then you may or may not spend too much time researching what is the average pay, what is a reasonable pay for this kind of work, right? And so we were talking about the gap, the wage gap between men and women. And so this is another area where we can really step into our own power, do some research upfront, and then do set a goal and to say, hey, I know the average market range for this position is this, is $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year, and I want that, right? And so this also gives you some fuel and specific target in your interview process, right? So that, same thing, it's really have that kind of mindset going in, have a specific money goal in your head. Okay, and then, with retirement, same thing, and with, investment, I do a lot of investment myself, and I also teach people how to invest. And one of the things that I hear from my clients is that they are not clear. So, for example, I do a lot of real estate investing, and so people come to me and say, hey, I would love to learn how to invest in real estate. And so tell me, where are the good deals? And so that's usually the kind of the first question I get. And so my question back to them is like, well, what is a good investment deal for me may not be a good deal for you, because your finance and my finance are different. Like, we're in different financial situation. So it's not just about what's a good deal, but it's also what's a right deal for you, right? And so that's the first thing I say. And then the second thing I say is, so if you're, for example, if you're investing in real estate, are you looking for appreciation or are you looking for cash flow? And oftentimes I hear my clients, they would think about it like, they said, well, I want both. And I say, no, you need to choose one. You might get the other one for free, but you have to have a main specific goal. And the reason is because if you're looking for a property, real estate property, if you're looking for appreciation, you will probably buy in a very nice area, right? Where, they keep the value, they keep, appreciating. But it also means that if it's going to be an investment rental property, the cash flow is probably not going to be great, just because the price is so high. And then you may get a little bit higher rent, but the ratio is not the same. And so if you're someone who's looking for a cash flow property that give you additional monthly income, then you probably don't want to go buy in the most expensive area in the country. You probably want to go kind of mid-tier to maybe even lower tier, where it's relatively speaking, it's really cheap on the purchase price, but they have a very solid rental income because it's a solid rental market, right? So depending on your goals, you would choose different properties. So it's not about, where's a good deal, right? And then talking about, stock market, again, the same thing. It's what are the return that you want, right? Do you want a 5% return? Do you want a 10% return? So it's not what's the latest, hottest stock. It's really what return are you looking for? And when based on that, then we go look for the kind of investment vehicles that give you that kind of return. So I hope I'm getting the point across here, and that is, be very proactive in thinking about what do I want in the money, in the number sense, as opposed to just kind of a general, yeah, I'm going to invest my money, but I have no idea what it's doing or what is it going to do for me, right? Because that really doesn't translate how well they can help me to create the retirement life that I want. So any questions so far? I know I've kind of throw a lot out here at you. Any questions?
A lot of valuable information there, Yulene. I think we'll maybe let people, give them a moment to think about and see if they have any questions. People didn't type any while you were speaking.
Okay. Okay, yeah, and we can save it for the end as well. I just want to make sure if there are any urgent questions based on what I said, I want to make sure that you don't forget about it, and so we can make sure we
Don't
right.
worry, I will let you know.
Okay, and then the last tip in terms of how to embrace money is practice makes perfect. And again, that kind of goes back to what I said earlier at the beginning, is that sometimes when we're not used to doing something, there's so much fear around touching it, right? And so the practice and the energy I want to bring to this point is roll with your numbers, right? And that means you just keep going back, measure, you keep going back, you do something, it may not be perfect the same time at the first time, and that's okay. You just go back and refine, right? So again, using the examples of your business numbers, you may set some goals, and in maybe you set $5,000, or and really after trying a couple of months, that's too high because you are starting out and then you have a very low price product, then you can adjust those numbers. And the flip side is true too. It's like, oh, you know, $5,000 was really easy for me to get to. Then you're gonna bump it up, right? So just make sure to feel like you're always in this fluid state when you're dealing with money. That it's never the perfect you know moment. It's always, we're always learning, we're always growing. And so it just also means don't be afraid to make mistakes, right? So let go of the fear, let go of fear, that sense of perfections. Another thing that I hear a lot from clients who may want to work with me, and one of the things they say, yeah, I need to work on my finances, but I need to fix this thing first before I can work on improving my finances. But what they don't realize is maybe this is what's causing, the fact that they don't have their finances down is the cause of, all these other issues that they may have, or challenges. Again, that going back to the foundational, this is actually the foundational piece, right? And so there's no perfect moment. It's just, you just keep practicing, as through practice, you get better. And so one of the things that I also notice with women around money is this, lack of confidence. They often say, oh God, I'm bad with money, or I'm bad with numbers. I hear that a lot, right? And so there's a lot of kind of a lack of confidence. And what I want to say to that is, yes, you can, practice affirmation, positive thinking, positive psychology, that's all helpful. But at the same time, what's really going to make it last and sustainable is practice. It's, if you think about, sports players, and, how do they get better, right? How do they become number one? How do they, the Olympic athletes, how do they become number one in the world? Well, they practice. And so same thing with money. And so this is my last tip for the day, is to just roll with it and play with it, and, make mistakes. And it's a lot cheaper to make small mistakes along the way than, ignoring it. And then you have a one big mistake that you had to make at some point. And so that's the last point. I also want to give you, before we go into Q&A, I want to give you some resources for you. And if you're, after this talk, you say, yes, I'm ready to work on my finances, what are some of the resources that I can tap into, that I can, go home and read? These are two books that I highly recommend. There are others as well, but these are the two that I would say that would be the first thing. The one on the right, The Rich Dad and Poor Dad. This is a book that got me started on my path of, what I call going from an income earner to a wealth builder. This is the book that shifted my mindset about how I think about making money, right? So, turning making money as a way to earn income, to really see yourself as a wealth builder. And for me, that's really exciting. But I think for some people, maybe the word wealth builder bring up some kind of emotions to that. And maybe it's scary, maybe it's like, ooh, I don't know if I want to be wealthy, because I've heard that, right? So again, just notice, for yourself, and what comes up for you. And then once you aware of those things, then there's we can actually work through them. But for me, it's really moving from just thinking about how I'm going to make money when I was younger, and how I'm going to create my own financial freedom. It's really moving from the mentality of a income earner, like an employee, versus even if you're a business owner, at the end of the day, you're just an employee of your business, right? And to really seeing yourself as someone who's building wealth and creating legacies from the resources that you build up. And so highly recommend this for you. And if you have kids at home that are like middle school or older, I would recommend them reading this as well. Start them young, because this is all the mindset stuff, right? The book on the right is for business owner. If you have a business, to really run your business, lead with profit first. And kind of like what I talked about earlier, oftentimes people lead with expenses, but it's, if you want to have sustainable, long-term, successful business, you've got to lead with profit first. So these are the two books that I highly recommend. There is another book, I didn't put it here, and it's called Prince Charming Isn't Coming. And this is a book for, if there's any of you out there that feel like deep down that you are wishing or wanting or hoping there's someone out there to take care of you, take care of your finances, take care of your financial future, then I highly recommend that book. It's called Prince Charming Isn't Coming, and it's a book written by Barbara Stanley, who is the daughter of H.R. Block, the owner and the founder of that company. And it's a very sobering story, but it's very powerful. So I highly recommend that. And then also, if you are interested in learning more about your relationship and, like I said, exploring, get deeper, I have a free money personality quiz on my website. And it's 10-minute, I would say 5-10 minute quiz with 16 questions. And it'll give you some idea about the kind of personalities that you are with money. And then again, it's just a way to help you get to know yourself better. If we want to improve, we have to know where we are, right? We have to know where we're starting. So that's a tool for you. Also, I do offer complimentary discovery sessions for anyone who is interested in working with a financial coach to help you really elevate and step up into your own power when it comes to money, and not stop feeling small and scared around that, right? Because you need that piece to create your financial security and financial future. So that's it for my presentation. And then now I'm gonna leave it for, open it up for Q&A.
So first of all, I have to say, with the Prince Charming Isn't Coming, I laughed, and we had a few laugh out louds here in the comments. But I have to say, with my work with women as well, whether it is the Walt Disney movies, all those things, but often I think in some ways we're even taught to wait for this Prince Charming.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's also the situation of women stepping out of the workforce and being more the stay-at-home mum, and having that person taking care of us, and sort of having that society that's what we are in. But I strongly believe in strong, independent women. So yeah, we're here to support you.
Right. And I actually currently working with a woman who is going through a divorce, and in her situation, she's actually the breadwinner in the house. She's been supporting her husband for a few years, putting him through school. But the interesting thing is, psychologically, she still want to be taken care of, even though she's the one who's making money. And so for these past few years that they've been married together, he's being the one who's managing the family finance. And now he's walking out, and she's, in a situation where, oh my God, I have no idea what our finances are. And so it goes, it's for women who become a stay-at-home mom, who kind of stop making money, and that feels natural, that because I'm not making money, I'm kind of letting go that responsibility. But it also happens with women who actually is the breadwinner in the house, but still in their personal finance in the household, they're still letting go of that responsibility.
So it's interesting. We have, first of all, I've seen women going through divorce, and women that it's like, oh my God, I didn't know that he wasn't paying the mortgage, or a whole lot of sort of horror stories like that. Some other comments are, some of us were never taught that, at least
Yeah.
not since Mona Lisa's smile.
Yeah,
So
it's
yes,
so true. That
and we
is so
have and we have some other comments. Great points to think about. So thank you. Wonderful tips. Love the practice makes perfect. And yes, start small. Even start with $100. Start with something and start making a difference for yourself.
true. Hmm.
And other comments of encouraging me to start small. And there's a question of, could you provide an example of what would a money story look like?
Mm.
I think they're referring in the beginning when you talked about rewriting your money story.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I can give you an example because through the clients that I work with, and also for a while I was interviewing a lot of women for a book that I was trying to write, and so I've heard a lot of stories. So one of the story was this woman, when she did the personality test, she basically is a avoider of money, so she doesn't want to deal with it, just have someone else take care of it. And so we were trying to figure out why, right? And so where did that come from? And at first she's like, I don't know, I just was never interested in money. And then she said, so we were talking about her childhood, and she said, well, when I was younger, we were kind of poor, so we didn't have much money. My dad was out working 2 or 3 jobs, so he was, always out. He was never really around much. And she said, I remember really kind of crave for his attention, but he was just never around, and he was just too busy making money. And so she realized at that point, now, right, looking back, is that back then she already associated money with lack of love. And so now growing up, herself as an adult, she wants to create a loving family, a loving relationship, and money is not part of that, because money equals to lack of love. And
Lack
so,
of presence as well, I would say, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Lack of presence as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, the lack of presence, the lack of love, she associated all of that with money because dad was always out making money. And so sometimes, when I hear these stories, as a mother of 2 kids as well, when I hear these stories, I'm like, oh my God, did I do anything that I, screwed up my kids, without even knowing that we've done this, right? Because sometimes, I'm sure, the dad was out. Well, I don't want to say I'm sure, but if they weren't wealthy, it's natural for the guy out to be, having multiple jobs to support the family, right? So, but sometimes as parents, we don't realize that there are things that our kids associate with the behaviors, that they observe from us, and from that they create their own stories in their head. And so with my clients, almost all of them we can trace back to something that happened in their childhood or early years, in the adult life. Something actually happened that caused a story, or what we call a key decision in coaching, is that they create certain beliefs, right? And they, without even realizing they did, and then they carry that for all of their life until now they're maybe at a place where they just feel like, I'm just stuck, like I can never seem to get ahead, in terms of my financial situation. And so when they really sit down and try to figure out what is it that's been holding me back, and that I'm just constantly stuck, or I've seen clients who have these, yo-yo cycles, right? It's like there are times when they do really, really well, and then everything's great, and then boom, something happened and they have to start all over again. So they have these cycles, and all of these is actually a story that they're trying to tell you, that there's something probably in there that's causing these behaviors. And so I hope that answers the question.
I think it does, and I think what I love about Lynn's work as well, that it is not just practical, but it really digs a little bit deeper to understanding what's holding each one of her clients back to really help you. And I see it as a lifelong change. And we have some other thank yous. Thank you for the reinforcement, ending fuzzy math, and investment vehicles thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the example that you gave really sort of explains what are the stories we're telling ourselves and what makes us act in certain ways.
Right, right. And then, the last thing I want to say is that, there's, to me, the two aspects of work that I, just personally for me, like to do is there's the money mindset aspect of it, but then there's also the practical aspect of how can I be a better money manager? So there are skills involved. This is the foundational work. So what I see in the mainstream, in the society is that you see people on the end of the two spectrum, and which is there are a lot of people who are working on their mindset, on their belief systems, and they're there, right? And they're working on it, but they stay there. And so what happens there is like, yeah, you can do law of attraction, you can do all these things to attract money coming in. But then if you don't work on the other hand of improving and upgrading your skills for managing and investing your money, then what happens is it's one hand in, one hand out. This is why, over 80% of people who win lottery, they lose it within 3 to 5 years. So why is that, right? So again, there's a component of working on the mindset and so that you can bring more money in. But then there is that practical side of it is how can I change and improve my behavior and my skills improving my skills so that I can be really money savvy, right? So it's really at the intersection if you can marry the two. And this is how I started my work as a coach. It's like, I want to marry the two. And because I believe this is where the power is. And so if you can kind of put yourself into that intersection, then this is where magic happens.
I agree. Okay, I think I want to also be very thankful for your time, Yolene, and I know you had a hard stop at 1 p.m. Eastern, so thank you so much for all the valuable information you provided today. And thank you everybody for joining us here today. I encourage you to watch the on-demand webinars, join us in the future. Thank you all, and here's to a great 2021.
Thank you.